Well, good evening, everybody, and let me add my welcome to Glenn's at the start of the service. My name's Josh, and I'm also on the staff team here at St. Ebb's, and it's lovely to welcome you, particularly if you're here as a visitor, and lovely to do so on an evening where the church building is, I would say, looking its best. I think massive Christmas trees and fairy lights and candles and whatnot suit it quite well. And if I may, I'd love us just to think for a few minutes together a little bit about Christmas lights, because they're sort of part of the package, aren't they? I don't know whether you've got lights up at home, and if you do, at what point you put them up, how long they've been up for you. And I don't know if you live on one of those roads where some of the neighbours appear to compete with each other for who can have the biggest and best Christmas lights. My wife and I used to live on a road where there was a couple of people who lived a bit further down than us, but next door neighbours, who I'm absolutely certain were competing with each other year on year, because each year, you know, who'd ever had the biggest lights last year was one-upped by the other family the next year, until the real height of it was the people at number 86 had an inflatable sleigh complete with a Santa and a reindeer and a motion sensor that would sing at people as they walked past it. That was a win for number 86. Personally, I find that two of the things I'm worst at in life are untangling things and DIY. So Christmas Lights Day is not a good day for me. But they're sort of worth it in the end, aren't they? Once they're up, they make you feel a little bit better. You know, this is nice in here. It's kind of sparkly and cheery, and it sort of feels like life. We put them up because they're nice. It's also true that we put them up because light is one of the ways that the Bible expresses the significance of what happened at the very first Christmas. It's a way of saying what that first Christmas was about, light. On the front of your service sheets and on all of our sort of flyers and posters this year, we've had a line from the carol, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." It says, "Light and life to all he brings." And the he there is Jesus Christ, and the all is all. Every person in the world. And that is actually quite a bold claim, isn't it? That the place where everyone gets light and life from is the God who the Christians worship. And that's not just what the carol says, it actually comes from the fourth verse of the last reading that we had. If you want to look at it, it's just on the previous page there. From John chapter 1, verse 4. "In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind." But I suppose the question for us is, okay, what does that mean? Particularly those of us who aren't kind of year-round followers of Jesus. Perhaps you're here and you think, well, I'd like a carol service. Somebody invited me along. God isn't massively a feature of my life day to day. So what are you saying when you say that Jesus brings light and life to me, to all? First of all, I think when we say light and life to all he brings, we mean that, first of all, in the sense that the whole world exists because of Jesus. I've got a couple of nephews and nieces who are very much in the Lego stage of life, which makes buying presents for them very easy at this time of year. You just add some stuff to the huge box of Lego bricks that they've already got. In fact, I'm not sure that anybody ever really exits the Lego stage of life. That would always be a fun present, but there comes a point where life makes you feel bad for enjoying Lego as much as you used to. But Boxing Day or something like that for lots of people will be spent turning this pile of Lego raw materials into a Hogwarts or a motorbike or a tower or something like that. What will happen on Boxing Day is that we will give some order and some meaning and some sense to our Lego box. And the thing is that you and I live in a world that seems much more like the Hogwarts and less like the Lego box. You know, it feels like it sort of makes sense and it has some order to it rather than just being random chaos. But where did that come from? In the case of the Lego, it will get its order and chaos. Sorry, it will leave behind chaos and be replaced by order because of me. It will go from being chaos to being Hogwarts through the intervention of a rational mind, although how rational I'll be at that stage on Boxing Day is hard to say. Human beings are right to assume that something makes our world make sense. something gives some order and structure to our world. And in the ancient world, people called that something the Word. Capital W, you can see it there at the start of that reading from John's Gospel. The thing that makes this world what it is, that makes it make sense. And here, John starts his Gospel telling us the story of Jesus' life by saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. And then there, in verse 14, at the end of the reading, the Word became flesh. So what he's saying there is that the person who makes the world what it is, the reason that light and life and anything else exists, has become a human being. And his name is Jesus Christ. Jesus gives light and life to all, first of all, because he made the world. He rules the world, as we sang before. Jesus, the one who is a baby in a manger, invented the law of gravity and enforces it right now. Jesus is the one who tells all of our hearts to beat. Jesus is the one who stokes up the sun to keep it burning. He brings light and life because he made the world, and he gives each one of us all that we have. The poet George MacDonald called him the light behind the sun. Did you know that's what the Bible says about Jesus? Not just that he's a kind of sweet baby at Christmas time, not that he's just a good example for each of us to follow year round, but actually that he is the maker and the operator of the world. And there is no light or life unless he says so. This is why Christians sing these carols, not just as a sort of comforting tradition, but as worship to him. But at Christmas, we celebrate him giving life in a particular way, in a second way. Because, I've just said Jesus is the one who rules the world. That's what we just sang in a carol before, that he rules the world. But you might think, well, if so, I've got a lot of questions for him. For one thing, if God is there, then who is he? Where is he? And if he rules the world, what if I think he isn't doing a very good job of it? What if I'm a bit sort of dissatisfied with the hand that he has dealt me? Got some questions. And at Christmas, Jesus came to shed light. To shed light on God. John says he came to make him known. It is really frustrating, isn't it, to know that, there might be some answers out there, but I just don't have any access to them. Earlier on this year, we did one of the escape rooms that you can do just up in the Westgate. It was a fun way to spend an evening, but I don't know if you've ever done an escape room. You know that you're sort of locked in this room, and you know that all the clues to get you out are in there somewhere, but you just don't quite know where to look. And I was rubbish at it. It was very frustrating. But maybe actually you feel a bit like that about God, that, well, maybe he's out there, but he's not giving me a lot to work with, is he? It's not sort of helping me to get him or to do life. Christmas changes all of that. Because in Jesus, God has made himself known, not hiding, not sort of tucked away in a way that's very difficult to find. Made himself known. And he didn't do it. He hasn't made himself known just by sending information about himself, but by becoming a human being. Can you imagine a sort of a greater humbling than for the infinite God to become a tiny little baby in an animal's feeding trough? And then the tiny little baby grew up. And if you want to see blazing light, something unbelievably, dazzlingly beautiful, then the place to look is his life. On your way out, there's going to be these blue booklets by the doors, which are just John's Gospel, so the whole of the story from which our previous reading was taken. And I'd love to persuade you to take one of these away and read it over Christmas, because what you will see in it is Jesus, and what you will see is just staggering, the life that he lived, and his life just pulses through it. You'll see his absolute power over everything, and yet his total gentleness towards the weak and his compassion towards the suffering. You'll see his fearlessness and his sternness in the face of injustice and evil. You'll see his humility. You'll see the way that he treats with dignity people who the rest of society have forgotten and written off. You'll see his teaching of a kind of moral beauty that's hard to express. You'll see his courageous self-sacrifice. And in all of those things, he's making God known, showing us what God is like. So I wonder if this evening, this Christmas, God seems like a slightly shady and confusing thing to you. I wonder if life seems like a slightly shady and confusing thing to you. In Jesus, God has made himself known. He has shed light. And look at him. Look at his incredible life. And you will be seeing the life and light of God. But just as I finish, above all, the way that he brings light and life is actually through his death. In him was life, says the verse. And yet, rightly, the most famous thing about Jesus is his death. When he was executed on a Roman cross in the prime of life, it looks like an accident. It looks like a tragedy, but in fact, it's not that at all. It was the means by which Jesus can deal with all of the darkness in our world, and yet even all of the darkness in our hearts. And then he rose again so that he can share light and life with anyone who will trust in him. Jesus, the one who is blazing light in himself, offers new life to each one of us. He offers us life lived in the light of God. He offers us life with all of our mistakes dealt with. He offers us life that not even dying can take away. That is offered to every single one of us this Christmas. Light and life to all he brings. And we would love to help you to investigate that life. And one of the things about light is that anybody can see it. You don't have to be a genius. You don't need an expert to help you to see light. It's just in the nature of light to be seen. And we think the same is true of Jesus. So as I say, please do, on your way out, grab one of these copies of John's Gospel and take it with you and have a read over Christmas. If it would help, there's another little book that goes alongside it to help explain some of the stuff in there, again, for you to take away by the door. I'm also really excited for a discussion group that we've got running in the new year. On the back of your service sheet, actually, you can see some information about that. It's called 321, and it's an opportunity for anybody to think through the heart of what Jesus says about himself, what Jesus says about the world, and the life that he offers to each one of us, and there's space to ask any question that you like. We think that Jesus is light and not shade. And therefore, actually, none of us here need be in the dark about God or about the things that matter most, because he's come to shine. And that's what Christmas points us to.